parrot, it knows not what it says.
Professor Casey expresses a view that's actually quite common among AI researchers and academics. This view basically characterizes large language models as essentially statistical models that are merely fancy autocomplete. I've been working in AI for years, and I've spent a lot of time thinking about neural network models. There's a certain point to what they're saying. It's very obvious from many, many examples that ChatGPT and these large language models in general often generate BS. They're generating very frequently plausible sounding text that isn't actually the case. And I think it's a plausible explanation for a lot of the output that these models generate. For example, if you ask it to talk about a particular topic, it's very likely just sort of munging together, pieces of text that it has absorbed, as well as confabulating things that aren't true at all. However, if you spend some time working with, for example, code generation, it's much less obvious that it can be explained in that way. For example, you can ask it to analyze some code that was written by a human. And for example, in one case where my colleague and I tried this, it analyzed the code. It gave, 5 or 6 very good observations about the code. And it even noticed a case where the programmer had swapped the order of 2 arguments. I've had conversations with ChatGPT where I ask it to write some code. It writes the code and it makes a mistake. And then I explain the mistake in conceptual terms, and then it rewrites the code correctly. There's no way that you can explain this kind of behavior from simply thinking that it's regurgitating text that is shown up in the training set. There are too many combinations of things that could happen, for example, in human written code, as well as asking it to write code based on a specification. It tends to do a relatively good job. It's not 100% perfect, but it is quite good. What I believe has to be happening when these large language models are being trained is they have to encode things at higher and higher levels of abstraction. If you look at, let's say, a visual pipeline in a neural network, you can often see that in earlier stages of the network, it's detecting like basic phenomena like edges and, lines in different directions. Later stages are detecting more and more complex abstractions. I believe this is what is happening when you're training these large language models. They're not sentient and they don't fully understand, but there have to be conceptual models in there for them to perform as well as they do. Code writing literally requires having some ability to model what the text is saying.